Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm Agi Keramidas and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to the podcast to get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's show, I'm delighted to speak with Chris Thrall. Chris, you are a former Royal Marines Commando, author, YouTuber, adventurer, public speaker and mentor. A few years ago, to raise awareness for veterans' suicide, you ran the length of Britain in 36 consecutive non-stop ultramarathons. You have expeditioned, you are the author of the State of Mind book, which with awesome cover. So you say that you've ticked off everything in your bucket list and that you've achieved all your goals. I actually had the pleasure to speak with you on my previous podcast last year, and I was itching to have another conversation with you. So Chris, welcome to the show. I think the listener is in for a treat.
Wow. It's my pleasure to be invited back, Aggie.
Awesome.
I don't usually get invited back to places.
I remember when we spoke, it was back in July 2019. There were some questions that I had found as a result of your answers. So I was writing down more questions. And we had said at that time, let's do a part 2 at some point. So I think now the time has come. Let me ask, I want to start a little bit. So since that time, July 2019 up to now, it's been obviously a very interesting year. So during this, since our last meeting, have you had any major aha moments, any key defining moments, something that really stands out for you?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I'm trying to lead with a positive. I'm trying to avoid the quagmire of what we've been through this last year and what we're continuing to go through, and the almost gut-wrenching sadness that this causes to enlightened individuals. By enlightened individuals, I mean people who don't watch the bloody mainstream media.
Yeah.
Who understand, how this world works, and that or to a degree as we're ever going to. And it has been so challenging, which I think is okay. Yeah, I mean, we can all have challenges. We all grow through challenge, but I think when you're a parent, you wonder where this world is going, especially when you've read literature like 1984 and Brave New World and Wild Swans and this kind of thing. And I hope we're living in some sort of illusion, Aggie, because all I can see is it's coming true under our very eyes, as exactly in the way it was predicted, which is the people will demand their own slavery, and that seems to be what's happening. And I just wanted to start off with something positive. So, gosh, what can I say? Well, let me just bomb burst a few things. I continue to meet wonderful people through the Bought the T-Shirt podcast. I get wonderful emails from people and messages through my Patreon from people I completely don't expect to say that I've touched their lives in some way. And this isn't an ego thing, or at least it shouldn't be, not with what you and I know about ego now, but it's good for me because I don't accept compliments very well, Aggie. You know, I don't, to me, I just be me. That's all I ever do, right? I'll do one thing that some people might think is quite extreme and demand. And once I've done it, the next day I'm, you know, pick myself up, have a cup of tea, and I'm thinking, right, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't ever stop and go, Chris, really well done, mate, on that, you know. I had to send myself a postcard from Antarctica, right? So I'm in Antarctica. It's the 7th continent I traveled, so the final one.
Yeah.
It's the culmination of coming back from the depths of drug addiction to achieving, as you very kindly said, all of my goals and dreams in the world. And this trip to Antarctica, I went on a diving expedition to the Antarctic Polar Circle. And while I was there, our expedition ship pulled into a Ukrainian research station. Okay. And it's they have the honor of having the only post office on Antarctica.
All right.
Okay? And you literally, they open it up when your ship docks there, and you go in, you speak to this, you know, I was going to say drunken Ukrainian guy, but I'll get myself in trouble there. But anyone who's traveled that part of the world knows what I'm talking about. So you speak to this guy and you buy a postcard and he stamps it for you and puts it in the post bag.
Right.
There's a warning. This probably won't arrive for about a year. Right? Anyway, my postcard is up there. Let me just grab it for the...
Yeah, sure. So it's, I wonder how long afterwards you got it then?
Well, that's the card.
Okay.
So that's my, I better just cover the name up, but that's my expedition ship. And I wrote this arrives 1 year later. I've forgotten about, of course, I'd completely forgotten about it.
Yeah.
I sent some to my family, to my best friends, this kind of thing. I didn't just send one postcard to myself, but this one says, well done, mate. There you go, look.
Is that all? Well done, mate.
Well done, mate. And it was, you know, sometimes we have to remind ourselves of our achievements, don't we? And that's okay. And my point was, when I get nice emails from people, yeah, I have to stop and remind myself that the stuff that I say, which I just think it's just stuff, it's my life, right? It can really help people that are struggling. And overwhelmingly, it's service men and women, mostly men, that really resonate with what I say. And yeah, we're in a suicide epidemic now in our veterans community. Everything seems to be catching up with everybody, and not in a nice way. And to be able to be a bit of a positive light is, yeah, let's call that the highlight of the last year.
Yeah, that's what you just said. It's so important to have a positive life, a light, or a voice of positivity in this case, in a podcast. Because there's so much negativity out there as it is, so people don't want more of that, really. I certainly don't want more of that. I want to be around people who can inspire me, who can uplift me, or listen to people who, even if I'm not in proximity as such, but getting the information, it's more important now than ever, I think, the way things are. And, you know, you said also about... you don't congratulate yourself enough, and I think it's something that many of us suffer from, and if it is something that I have really made a big effort lately to implement as a daily practice, really, to remind myself of how good I am, not in a egotistical way. I mean, to be proud, what you were saying, of what I'm doing. Even though I'm doing it, I would love to contribute to the listener so they can get something out of something positive out of every conversation. But it does feel great, and I do need to remind myself, because otherwise it just goes and you go for the next one and then the next one, but our life is these bits in between those goals. It's not the goals, and that's something that I think that many people have got it wrong, that the success or the achievement, or it's that spot. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, there was something else I wanted to say is, I think with this kind of, let's call it life coaching environment, which I'm not really the biggest fan of a lot of stuff that's kind of goes on. This is not a criticism, it's more just an observation. I mean, I see there's life coaches. To some people, life coaching is how much money can they get in the bank, right? And to someone like myself, it's, oh my God, you're going to end up so unhappy. You're going to wonder, I mean, maybe not, maybe I'm being judgmental, but there's some fundamental universal laws that I think we need to obey if we want to find that enlightenment. And the accumulation of wealth, I don't think that comes into it, right? But the other thing I was going to say is, you don't often hear God, excuse me. You don't often hear life coaches talk about themselves and their challenges. And the point I was going to make there is, like, I realize my development all the time. And on the same note, I realize my kind of failings, or my shortcomings, I should say. It's all it all just seems very real. Am I making sense?
I'm trying to see what the point you're trying to make is there.
Yeah, no, I'd just say it's easy to highlight something great that went well this year, right? That's a relatively easy thing to do. But it's the stuff behind the curtain that is also very important. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about relationships. I've learned that I'm not really sure about a lot of stuff, Aggie, I'm comfortable with that, because I think it's just the way life is always going to be as a human being, right? We've got this thing called a brain and relationships, and it makes things a little bit more complicated than, say, being a cow chewing grass in a field. We got too many options, and yeah, sorry if that didn't really answer your question.
That's okay. I got you mentioned something with the having the money as your incentive, as your outcome, and working backwards from that is probably not going to sustainably lead you anywhere nice. So the money will come as a result of what you do. It shouldn't be the focus, because if my focus is to make money, I'm going to do things differently, not in a better way necessarily. There was something, Chris, that it's different, but it was one of the main things that I wanted to discuss with you today, because as a result of the previous podcast, it kind of left me hanging, and I want to to discuss this because I think it's very useful is an understatement. I think it is one of the most essential things in the world, and that's the state of mind, actually, which is the title of your book as well. And I will ask the question the way I have imagined the question, but please feel free, if you think that it's a different direction, go to a different direction. My question was, when you run those 36 days in a row, doing an ultramarathon a day, 1,000 miles in total, you say with no training, so there must be something in here in the mindset that is different or was different in you than most people out there, because otherwise many people would be able to do that. So I would really like to go a little bit deeper down into this topic about this kind of mindset, which it's something that I really wanted to explore with you today, if you're happy to do so, that is.
Absolutely. It's just how to sum it up, Aggie. I'm not really, as your audience can probably tell, I'm not one for sound bites, because life for me just doesn't work like that. And it's, I can come out with the odd cliche, of course I can. So I'm just going to tell you how I am, right? And hopefully that can explain why I live my life the way I do.
Sure.
So growing up, I don't want to talk about my childhood, but as probably everybody in the world is aware who's ever listened to one of my podcasts, it was pretty dark at times, right? Mm-hmm. Off the back of that, I had a certain character, and it's a very bizarre character. I'm an introvert, but I'm extrovert. I'm very outgoing, but I'm also quite shy. I don't know, I'm guessing a lot of people listening will relate to this, right? I don't think there is just one single way of being and it's easy to sum up. I think we're different in different situations. But here's the thing. For example, I've always been fiercely loyal. When all the rats jump from a sinking ship, I'll stay on the ship. It's just who I am. Unless that ship is utterly filthy, stinking and, beyond salvageable. You're my friend. I'm not going to ditch you just because everybody else does. I've always had that type of character.
Mm-hmm.
As such, it's difficult to say. I think being in the military, so being in the Royal Marines, Aggie, it helped me come of age a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't feel particularly massively confident going in there, but there was no way as hell I was going to quit. Never going to happen, right? You can throw me out, I might break my leg, that's okay. But I never considered quitting, never considered going home, right? But I don't even know if that's a factor in my psyche, because I always, even in the military, had my own mind. And I could be in a room of people and 15 people would think this or believe this or act like this. And I'd say, no, I'm not doing it. Sorry. And I think I kind of got away with that because people, I think they respected there was something about me that they didn't want to kind of like fuck with, It wasn't always the case, but, and just to give you an example, you got these virtually free flights in the military. They were called indulgence flights.
Mm-hmm.
And they were spaces on either military aircraft or civilian aircraft, like British Airways 747 airliners, right? That the military book. and it's for the people traveling around the world on military missions. So the British military used to, I don't know how it is now, but they had a lot of interest in Canada, Hong Kong, obviously. So to those places, there were regular flights that you could jump on, and all you paid was an administration fee. Hong Kong was £30, right? Canada was £60. Now, tell me, how in any way possible, and all you do, Aggie, is you put your name on a waiting list, right? You get permission from your commanding officer.
Mm-hmm.
You say, sir, I'd like to apply for this flight to here. And of course he says, yes, there's no issue there, right? So long as you're back for work on time, which I wasn't once, which is quite a funny story. You're on that flight, right? That paper gets sent off to the RAF indulgence flight office. Some man or woman there stamps it, and then you're at home one day and you get a phone call. Marine Thrall, we got a flight to Hong Kong tomorrow night. Do you want it?
All right. Okay.
Do I want it? You better believe I want it for 30 quid, right? I'd get on that plane, Aggie. I would drink the plane dry, right? I was on holiday. It was just so amazing. I'm going to Asia for the first time in my life. I'm going to Hong Kong that I saw in Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Yeah. You know, the kickboxing, the kung fu, the chopsticks, this funny language. I'm going there for £30. And not only that, but I'm going to drink about £130 worth of alcohol on the flight.
How old were you then, Chris?
That one, I was 20,
right.
22.
Probably good age to party.
Yeah, probably old compared to now. I mean, people travel younger now, but my first real holiday was to New York, and that was just a regular holiday with my friend. We went for New Year, right? But
yeah.
So here's the thing. I had agreed to go to Hong Kong because a fellow Marine had come up to me and gone, Chris, we're all going to Hong Kong for Christmas. Do you want in? And I was like, yeah, of course, right? When it came to handing that paper in to the commanding officer, where are all these guys? I'm not saying this is like everybody in the Marines, not at all. But these 7 guys that I'd agreed to go with all went, no, I'm going to go down the pub. I'm going to watch videos. I'm going to just stay home with the missus, right? Excuse my terminology, but this is what they were saying. So I went to Hong Kong, had the greatest time. Didn't know where the hell I was for the whole week I was there. I was involved in the biggest mass death, if for want of a better word, in Hong Kong's recent history. So I was there. I was in a street where 21 people were crushed to death when they rushed outside to celebrate the New Year, right? I was there when there was a armed robber called Yip Kai Fun was rampaging the street. Literally, you could hear these gunshots going off as he was running up and down the street with his gang robbing jewelry stores, right? I'm 22 years old. This stuff is insane to me. I'm just loving every single moment of being in this crazy kind of culture. After that eventful week, I then went to Thailand for a week. Mm-hmm. I tried to go to the Philippines actually, but I missed my plane. So when I got to the airport and they said, sorry, sir, the plane's gone. I said, oh, well, where can I go? And they said, well, our next flight leaves for Bangkok. I said, get me on that one, right? This is not indulgence now. This is just normal flights, right? So I had to pay 160 quid or something. So I have a week in Thailand, and there's a song, isn't it? One night in Bangkok makes the hard men tumble. That's why my nose is broken, right? You can read about, you can watch this on my YouTube channel. So again, a bit of a long-winded way of explaining. Oh, I went to communist China. I went in a travel agent and I said, look, I'm just putting this out there. I'm a British serviceman, so obviously I can't go into China because it's a communist country. But how do people go? They said, sir, just go on the train. I said, yeah, but I'm military. They were like, who's going to care about that?
Mm.
Aggie, I booked a trip to China, mainland China, 25 years ago, when white people, Westerners, didn't go to China.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there may have been one or two floating around. So here's the thing. I don't know why I wanted to go on that trip, but I couldn't get anyone else to go with me, right? It's just been the story of my life. I don't know what it is in human beings that they'll go, yeah. And then when it comes to, nah, just change, you know? I'm obviously not talking for everybody, but we're talking about state of mind, my book, weren't we?
Mm-hmm.
My book. So because I've had a lifetime of deciding what I'm going to do based on what I think is good for me and my learning and my experience, not what other people tell me I can do, can't do, won't do, should do, or what they would do, then I've developed a certain way of being that maybe other people that struggle to achieve the things they want haven't yet developed, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when it comes to running 999 miles non-stop, bar sleeping in a tent on the side of the road, carrying a 15-kilo backpack and running anything over 26.2 miles a day, or at least averaging over that per day, I break it down logically. First of all, I don't care what people think. That's, you know, even if they're a top Olympic athlete and they're an ultra runner, they're not me and they're not doing this challenge, right? They're going to judge it from their perspective.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So an ultra runner who's probably brilliant at running 100 miles non-stop, which I have done, and, you know, his barriers might just be, well, you can run 100 miles, but you can't run 200. And this actually happened to me when I was preparing for this event. I had some of the most guys I respect the most say, no, Chris, don't do it. You won't, it will end in tears. And you've got to be strong, Aggie, in that case. You've got to be strong and go, no, I believe in myself. I have the power to make decisions and rationalize things myself. So, gosh, I had an awful lot of stuff going against me. I'd had 4 spinal surgeries. One of them was an open surgery. So literally I've got a scar on my back that's 2 inches long. So I hadn't been able to do any training. When I finally managed to book a flight to John O'Groats, because I have to do this thing, right? If it's on my bucket list or my to-do list, it's like I have to do it. If I don't, I got to live the rest of my life living with the torture that I never did something that I said I was going to do. I'd rather do it and fail, and that's cool. That's okay. So couldn't do any training. So I booked my flight and I gave myself a 3-month window to do some training, right? And I rationalized that in a 24-hour race once, I ran 76 miles. And in that race, I slept for about 5 hours. And I still managed. So I was running for 19 hours and I managed 76 miles. So I figure if I run the length of the country, I can at least do 26 miles a day, right? If I can run 76 miles in 24 hours, I can run 26 in a day. Okay, I'm carrying a heavy backpack, so that's going to bring, I won't be able to run 76 miles every day, but maybe I'll be able to run around 30. You do a bit of research and you find out that other people have done this before. Well, there was one guy that had done it before me, so it's possible, right? You use your psychology that is better to fail than not try at all, right?
Yeah.
You remind yourself that the people you care about in your life and that care about you will just be proud of you for trying. That's all they want, right? And if there's naysayers and people waiting on the sidelines for you to fail, and that's understandable, a lot of people live in their ego, and we're all guilty of that. I find myself in that place at times in my life, when I see other people succeeding and I feel that I'm getting left behind. I get it, right? But you got to remember that their possible reaction to you passing or failing something shouldn't really have a bearing on whether you try and do it. Okay.
It's what you just said, better to fail than not to try at all, is I think it is one very small, very short sentence that if people would take that on board and actually practice it, do what it says. It's better to fail than not to try, because you know that the majority are they see it completely opposite, that they are afraid to try because they might fail. So it's a great distinction, I would say, from what you just said, that I would love to, if I speak for myself, I wish I had now I truly embrace what you said. But if I went back like 10-20 years ago, there was nothing like that. I was terrified of not failing, so I wouldn't even try unless I felt that I was ready. And that really was a waste of precious time that I could have done much more than I actually did, because of this way of thinking that I can do it another time when I'm more ready, and these things. Yeah.
I was on a campsite in Australia. I think I was somewhere near Cairns, might have been Airlie Beach, and I met a very nice guy, and he pitched his tent next to mine on this camp spot, and we got chatting as you do when you're traveling, and we went out for some food and some beers that evening. And at one point in the evening, he just broke down crying. And he's listening to me telling these stories of my life, because to me it's my life. So what do you talk about when you meet someone? You talk about what you know, don't you? And so I know about a bit about Hong Kong, a bit about China, a bit about being in the military, a bit about running failed businesses. Drugs is something I probably know more than I need to. All this kind of stuff, right? Oh, and I'd just come back from working. I'd worked in Mozambique teaching street children, which was just an indescribable experience to live on the what's the ocean down there? It's the Indian Ocean, isn't it? To live on the beach on the Indian Ocean and just teach kids for 6 months was just unreal. Then I was asked to drive volunteer journalists from Norway to India and back, so right through the deserts of the Middle East. And this guy's listening to these stories, and he's just suddenly breaks down crying. I have that effect on people. and I'm like, dude, what's wrong? He's like, Chris, it's taken me until 40 years old to realize that working in a 9 to 5 in a job wasn't going to make me happy. I bought that stuff hook, line and sinker. I thought if I, become a supervisor, then I'll be happy. And when I was a supervisor, I thought, right, let's, a manager, I'll get more money, bigger car, can get a bigger hat. That will, and this is what we need to be careful of, isn't it? We need a happy balance between lifestyle and experiences.
Absolutely.
We need to understand how our minds work, because I think, or I like to think, that if my family and I had to move into a, let's just call it a grotty little bungalow tomorrow on some bleak housing estate or something, in some deprived area of, I just like to think we'd be as happy as we are now. I don't know. I obviously it's hard to say, but
I think I get the point of what you're saying, that you have to detach your sense of well-being or happiness or fulfillment from material things, if I can put it like that. I mean, it's many people still strive for them because they believe the happiness is a result of an achievement, whether it is material or otherwise. But goes back to what we were saying earlier, that life is what's happening every day while you are trying to achieve that thing. And there's nothing wrong with a bigger car, but if you think that a bigger car is going to make you happy, then there's everything wrong about that. I mean, it's what you were saying about balance, and I believe balance was, we talked about, I remember talking about balance last time when we had the conversation. Can I ask you, I just want one more thing to ask about that way of thinking while you were running, and I will wrap up with that topic. You said that you never considered quitting. You never considered going back home. My question is, when you say you never considered it, does it mean that the thought never occurred inside your mind, or that there was thoughts popping up and you would put them aside and just focus your conscious attention on your task? Does that make sense, the question? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've just had a good friend of mine, also a former Marine, who's did what I did. He's just run the length of the country. Fortunately, I was able to give him the benefit of my wisdom, so he didn't have to make the mistakes I did, right?
Yeah.
But he had can we call it a wobble? Like he had a day he was wobbling. He was like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? Can I do, as you're asking me, that kind of thought just didn't, I won't entertain. I like to think, Aggie, I wouldn't entertain that kind of thinking, because even when I was in agony, when I'd fractured my right leg, that basically had what we call in the Marines a shin splint, which is a stress fracture in my right leg. And I was in absolute agony. I was reduced to limping. And even then I wouldn't stop. I just wouldn't stop, right? I'm not going to go to a hospital or a doctor or what. That's just going to waste time. But to answer your question, even at that moment, in my worst moment, all I'm thinking is, how can I keep going? What can I do to keep going? And in case your audience is wondering what I did, I bought a bottle of rum and I washed a couple of painkillers down with it. And I don't suggest anybody does that. It's very dangerous. You can stop breathing. But this is my life, and I live my life my way, as I've already said. And that dulled the pain enough for me to continue. So no, there was never, ever a point where I considered stopping. I considered, I'm going to use the word failure, but it's not there's no such thing as failure. There's just experiences. But I did consider the experience if I had to stop. But it was only oh my God, I bloody really don't want to. I can't let that happen. If I do that, I've got to run this whole thing again. I've got to pay all this money again for the equipment and the flight. I've got to take time off my writing. So no is the sort of short answer. Yeah, no.
I get it. You said that you wouldn't entertain that thought, and I think that's I will pick that part of your answer, and because even if the thought comes, which might, I was just curious to see what you thought of that, because you know that we are not in control of our thoughts. We are in control of how we will respond to our thoughts, but they just come out of somewhere, not necessarily our preference.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about it then, because I hope our friends at home can learn by my experience, right?
Sure.
So
because you know, Chris, it's also about, this thing is about overcoming adversity in any way, because you have to pull through it and go through that mental suffering, because I think the mental suffering is even worse than the physical suffering, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing though, what you learn by doing these kind of expeditions is it's the same thing.
Yeah.
When your body is in pain, your mind is in pain. You know? I don't think it works the other way around. If your mind's in pain, your body can be psychosympathetic or whatever that expression or that word is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, at the end, when I was the last day, at my second to last day, I looked at my phone to see how much distance I have left. The phone's telling me 80 miles. And I've got to run 80 miles in 2 days if I want to make this ultra marathon a day thing, right? That will keep my average all nice. And the very last day was the only day it was painful. The only day out of 36 days was that very last day, because everyone was waiting for me at Land's End. Well, not the whole world, but the whole of my world. And I kind of aimed to get there for 2 o'clock, which was a nice sociable time where everyone could drive home and have time to drive home. It was now looking like it's going to be 6 o'clock. And so it's not like I can stop for an hour and have lunch and, get a massage or something, right? And for anyone listening, I didn't have any support team. I ran solo, carrying all my own gear, right? Just like a hiker. And so because I couldn't let them down and they're all waiting for me, I just had to run I ran 45 miles one day.
Wow.
And then I ran 33 the next. And that last 10 miles was utter, just agony. Just, it's like hitting the wall in a marathon, but then you got to keep going for 10 miles.
Yeah.
Worse than anything I did in the military, worse than but we digress. What I was going to say is, I couldn't do any training. When my back got better and I had the surgery, I booked the flight in 3 months' time, thinking, right, I've got 3 months now. I can do some training, right? what happened is, and this is bizarre, I never get sick ever, right? I eat alkaline diet, so my body can't get ill, right? And I won't go down that route because I'll talk about it a lot. It's all on my channel, folks, right? But here's the thing. I had done an 18-day water fast, which is, again, one of the best things I've done in my life. It's just an amazing, amazing experience. But rather probably stupidly, I didn't rest, which is what you're supposed to do when you water fast. You're not supposed to do anything. In fact, on day 15 of not eating, I went out running.
Wow. Okay.
You know, it was a bit of a silly thing. I just wanted to dispel the myth that when you do a half marathon or a marathon, you've got to take with you all these blooming silly energy gels.
Yeah.
You know, your body has got so much fat in it, you can last. Well, I went 18 days without food. I did lose 4 stone in weight. I'm not that big a guy anyway. But I just wanted to sort of dispel the myth that, you know, if you enter a marathon, you've got to have this gel and you've got to eat pasta the night before and all this stuff, which is just absolutely not true, right? What happened is, the other thing I was doing, I'm passionate about sauna, and my local sauna is shut at the minute. It's gutting, but back when it was open, I'm like addicted to it. I have to go every morning, right? So I do maybe a little exercise in the gym and then have a sauna. Anyway, I was still saunaing every day on this 18-day water fast. So I don't know if I was depleting my body's nutrients and really just running myself into the ground. But for the first time in 17 years, I developed some kind of illness, right? Now, if I had to describe to anybody what it was, I would say it was coronavirus. But this was a year, maybe a year and a half before coronavirus was even on the television, right? I had this bizarre cough that just wouldn't stop. It was like in the top part of my lungs. My son got it the same time I did, right? So first thing we did was fast, right? Fast again, because anyone will know as a mammal, you know, anyone who studied fasting will know that mammals, the first thing they do when they get sick is they stop eating. They actually stop drinking for 48 hours. Like a dog will take itself away, lie down, stop drinking, stop eating, start drinking after I think it's about 48 hours, and basically let the body relax and rest, and it heals itself in that time of rest. Shoving food down your throat is just, you know, it's putting a stress on a body that's already stressed out.
Yeah.
So we fasted and it didn't work. Just absolutely didn't work. So I went to the doctor and I got tested for, I suppose what you say, viruses, right? I didn't know what I know now about virus. I have got a very different understanding of what a virus is now to probably the mainstream, or let's say people that haven't looked into germ theory. But back then I didn't really know as much as I do now. I went to the doctor, I got tested, all came back negative. So something had happened to my body that gave me all those coronavirus symptoms, but it wasn't a virus. And it all gets a bit confusing, Aggie.
I'm trying to understand where you're getting with this.
Well, what I'm getting, to get back to your original story, what I'm getting at is this precious 3 months that I put aside to do some training. Yeah. I'm now struck down with this mystery illness, and everything I learned through fitness over the years told me when you're sick, you don't train, your body needs to rest. Okay, I don't know how true that is, but let's just say I thought maybe there's some credence in it. So the 3 months that I'm supposed to rest up, I've got this thing that people would now call coronavirus, right? And I don't think I'm contagious or anything. I'm just pointing it out for people listening, right? I just don't believe in all that. But it got to the point where my flight is 5 days away. My flight to John O'Groats to the north of Scotland.
Yeah.
I called a guy that I very much respect, a regimental sergeant major in the Marines, and I said, look, I'm just going to go for it. I've got too much invested. I've waited now to do this 2 years being disabled, or 2.5 years. I've already bought 2 flights. This is the second one. I'm going to go for it. No training, no nothing. And I've got this, this weird virus symptoms. And that was it. The day before my flight, I'm going to admit, I suddenly had a case of anxiety, and I sat there, I'm trying to get my gear packed, and I'm thinking, I'm just about to run basically 1,000 miles, ultra marathon a day. It's going to be about, between a month and 2 months running solidly. Got a 15 kilogram backpack, which I can't get any lighter, right? It's insane. It's just not what most people would plan to do for a trip. I'm overcoming major spinal surgery, and the surgeon said I shouldn't even lift up my son for 18 months after my surgery, right? And here I am with a 15 kilogram backpack. I've got this weird virus, and to top, plus I've got a clicking ankle, strained ligaments in both knees, and on top of that, I haven't even done any training whatsoever. And if on top of that again, I haven't walked further than the car for 2.5 years. Think about that. I'm a couch potato. The only reason I'm not potato shaped is I've done this water fast, right? So I'm there, and my partner looks at me and she says, "Are you all right?" And I said, "No, hon, I'm not." I said, "What am I doing?" Right? You've got to remember, I've already got 1,000 people on social media who are there to either clap me on or hope that I fail, right? I got the whole of the Royal Marines, the toughest bunch of badasses in the world, all like I represent them, Aggie. I've got to do this thing, can't fail it. On top of that, I represent the mental health community, which is most important to me. I have to show people that us druggies, we can get out there and smash it with the best of them, right? It's important to me. Okay, I'm talking about addiction here, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I just looked at my Jenny and said, "What the hell am I doing?" And she just looked at me and smiled and went, "You'll do it, Chris. You always do." To have that belief, reflected back at me at that moment, it just broke it shattered this feeling of anxiety. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I will, won't I?" "Oh yeah, thanks for that." And that's it. But that can just show you how the illusion of failure, or the illusion of all these problems that might go wrong, but in reality very rarely do, or probably won't. And even when they do, you can, put your health and safety in place and do. I mean, basically, as long as you've got a mobile phone these days, you've usually got your bank card tucked into it. You can't really go wrong, can you? You've got a computer in your hand. As far as I was concerned with a run, well, I'm just going to run on the roads. It's not like I'm going to be navigating the wilderness.
Yeah.
So what's the worst thing can happen? Well, I have to flag down a car and say, "Excuse me, nice person. Could you take me to a hospital? Could you take me to a hotel? Or would you be kind enough to drive me all the way to Land's End? Right. So,
Yeah.
yes, there you go. That was just something I wanted to tell people, is that, you know, I did have a moment there.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it a great thing to have a partner that believes in you and that bigs you up instead of dragging you down, and reminds you that no, you're more than you're more than you're more than you think you're capable of at times.
Yeah.
Just another component, Aggie, isn't it, into this rich tapestry of why do some people get things done and why do others? Well, I don't think anyone ever got anything done if they had a nagging partner who didn't believe in them, who go, what are you spending that money on a bloody 400-gram tent for? Why are you buying that lightweight sleeping? But I mean, I can't see it happening, right?
Absolutely. And the person that is next to us and we share our life or big parts of our life with is going to be our primary influence. So if they, in a way or another, they drag you down, you will. It's inevitable. Chris, you said earlier in the beginning you're not one for sound bites, and I know that you are not, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit, and I want to ask you 2 or 3 quick fire questions, just not for the sake of getting a soundbite, but because of the sake that I want your your unique answer in questions that I do all the time. Pardon?
My philosophy.
Yeah. So one is, what does the term personal development mean to you?
It just means get out there and smash it. You know, you get one life. How many lives do you think you get? You don't. You just get one, unfortunately. Okay, if various religions might tell me I'm wrong, and that's absolutely fine. All I know is, in this form that people call Chris Thrall, this set of carbon molecules that will just go back and be a part of this beautiful universe when I'm gone, right? And I'm cool with that. Like, in this form of life experiencing itself, which is what I believe our, we all are. I get one go at it.
Yeah.
And in this go, I'm going to do everything that I want to do. And it will mean challenging myself, because some things are scary and some things require money and some things require effort. Some things require developing your mind so you can step apart from the herd and say, no, sorry, I'm going to do this, right? Yeah. That's kind of personal development to me.
And tell me also, if you could, based on the experience, everything that you've lived in your life up to now, if you could give only one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, if you could theoretically do that, which one would you choose to say? It's difficult, isn't it? There are so many things.
It's difficult because I was trying to think of a joke, but I'm not that funny. No. I think, and this ties in nicely, because what I didn't say in that first soundbite is ego. Get rid of the ego. Well, you can't get rid of it, but you can recognize in life when your ego is making your decisions for you. And it's basically when you're angry, jealous, greedy, hurting, or over hurting perhaps. All these kind of negative, or what we would perceive as negative emotions. Took me until 45 years old to understand what ego is. And then
Tell me about it.
when I realized, when I look back, it's guided pretty much everything I've done in my life. I don't know if that's a bad thing. It's probably got me quite a few great life experiences, but probably done them all for the wrong reasons.
Chris, let me ask you one more one. Emerging from everything we've talked about today, can you give to the listener one actionable item? One thing they can start doing straight away if they want to, to make a positive difference in their lives.
Okay, can I give you two? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Right. First off, absolutely essential, well, it is if I life coach you, smile at the morning sun. Right? What are we doing there? We're saying, universe, Mother Nature, God, whatever your thing is, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I could have been born a rock. Right? I could be dead now. I could have died in some horrific, unfair accident or of some nasty illness, but I'm not. I'm here. I get the ability to not just experience this beautiful blue planet, but I get to create the reality that I live in. It's up to me. It's up to how I think. It's just down to my thoughts. And without getting too deep that way, so the way I do this is I get out of bed and I smile at the morning sun and I remind myself, even if I'm feeling down or bad for whatever, that I'm still lucky to be here. And if I had the chance in the womb of like, do you want to be born or do you want to be aborted? Can I be born, please? Seriously, I want to be born. I want to check this out. It's a bit like a free LSD trip, isn't it? It's a bit, life is mental, right? And of course you can further that by saying upset, it's only temporary, folks. Even we can have the most horrendous things done to us or experience. It's still only temporary. You will look back and things will be better, right? Mm-hmm. So smile at the morning sun. Second thing is take action. That's it. Very simple way to take action if you're a bit directionless is walk around the block. Or if you want to be adventurous, jog around the block. Or if you want to be Tarzan, run around the block, right? It's all I do 5 times a week. I jog less than a mile around the block, gets air in your lungs. That oxygenates your body. It's really important. I'm not that clever to tell you why, but I guess it's because we don't do enough exercise in our life and we need to do what we would have done when we lived in the wild. It flushes endorphins to your brain, which is just a happy chemical. But more than that, it leaves you realizing that you're capable of doing something about your situation, whatever it might be. Whether you're happy, sad, it shows you that you can take action. So that would be my 2 things. Smile at the morning sun, take action.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you for everything that you shared with me today. I want to wish you all the very best with everything that you're doing. Actually, I wanted to ask you, how can people connect with you and find out more about you? That was my last question, really.
Okay, shall I give them my address?
Anything you want to share. Up to you.
Well, so firstly, let me reciprocate. Thank you very much, Aggie, for having me on your show for a second time. And to your audience for listening. It's an honor, really. I hope people can get something from what I've said. Even though I think I've said quite a lot. So to get hold of me, just type Chris Thrall into a search engine or YouTube. My podcast is Bought the T-Shirt Podcast. You can listen to it on all the platforms, including YouTube. Mm-hmm. I host a Patreon web page. And through that, I do life coaching for £10 a month. So I do one session a month for people, first via a YouTube video, and then we have an hour chat via Zoom afterwards when we can just kind of needle things out, all confidential, obviously. And so, yeah, so I have a Patreon platform. I'm saying this, Aggie, because I get asked a lot now, Chris, can you coach me? And I haven't got time. So I just do it. That's the way I do it. If you want, if you like what I'm saying, if you think it helps you, I will give you all my time for that hour, but we just do it in a group rather than I try and do individually, because I don't have time for that now.
Yeah,
and that's it. All the, Facebook, Chris Thrall, Instagram, Chris.Thrall, Twitter, Chris Thrall.
Fantastic. Chris, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and sharing your vast experience and knowledge. So all the very best. Any parting words?
Hasta la vista, baby.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and rate Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to become part of an exclusive community, gain access to unique content, and at the same time support this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpat. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in,